This is Rachel from Red Ant Fashions. So I picked up this girl the other night, and I rolled up and it was the Fraternity house downtown on Greek Row and on campus, and I picked her up and her friends, she was like, literally, she couldn't walk to my car at all. Like she was carried essentially to my vehicle and put in the backseat of my car, and this boy gets in the car and back with her, and he's supposed to just make sure she gets home safely, back to her dorm across town, and then I'm supposed to take him home. And so one of her friends leans in, just lets me know, please don't let this boy go home with her. She's like blackout drunk, doesn't know who she is or where she is right now, and I just need her to get home safely. And on the other end, in front of her dorm, one of their friends is waiting for her to arrive, and then they're going to take her inside. And so I said, yeah, that's totally fine, I get it. As long as she's not puking, I'll totally give her a ride home. And so they put her in the back, and I take off, and her friends leave, and she's got the boy in the back who's supposed to be just there to make sure she gets there safely. And I look in the rearview mirror of my car, and I'm like halfway there, and he's like literally holding her, and she's flopping around like a fish in the backseat of my car. She's totally incoherent. And he's like trying to make out with her and trying to talk to her and tell her that he's gonna go home with her, and he's like totally feeling her up and grabbing her tit, and basically just copping a feel and trying to go at it. And I mean, it was bad, and it just looked like, I mean, he was literally about to have sex with her in the backseat of my car, and that was what it looked like, and that's the direction it was heading, the way he was manhandling her. And I totally just lost my shit and just started screaming at him, you know, she's trashed, what are you doing? And she's not even awake, like, she can't talk, she can't walk, she probably doesn't want to have sex with you. And he kind of just ignored me, and so I pulled over, and I just totally flipped out on him. So I pulled off to the side of the road. I was like still in the middle of the road, but I kind of just pulled off and like stopped my car, and I'm yelling at him, you know, what the fuck are you doing? She's totally trash, she's incoherent, you know, her head is like flopping all over the place in the backseat of the car, you know, and he's having to hold her head with two hands as he's trying to cram his tongue down her mouth, and he's totally, you know, feeling her up and just being gross. And he kind of just, like, when I yelled at him, he kind of just looked at me like a deer in headlights, like he couldn't believe that I was like yelling at him. And he kind of just held her, was just staring at me. And so then I kept going, and I got her to her destination, and her friend was standing out front of the dorm, and came up to the car and grabbed her and kind of shook her and kind of woke her up a little bit. And the girl kind of looks at her, and then all of a sudden her eyes like open up really big, and you can see like she was like, hey, I know you. And there was like this recognition of like actually figuring out where she was, and she knew the person that came out to get her. And so her friend took her inside the dorm, and then I dropped off the dude, the douchebag, in the backseat of my car back at his place. What pissed me off so much about that was, I mean, these kids couldn't have been more than 20, 21, maybe 21. But I mean, if you're that pathetic that your only chances of getting laid are to try to take home a girl that's so incoherent that she can't even stand up on her own, and you have to hold her up. She's like passed out. She's totally out of it, like totally incoherent, blackout drunk. It's just, seriously, it's just kind of fucked up. And you know that kind of stuff happens more and more, and it happens all the time, but it happens definitely more and more in colleges with young kids and stuff. And I don't know, I can kind of understand, you know, because as soon as you say that it was a bunch of sorority and fraternity kids, and that's where I picked them up at, and that's the kids they were, people automatically assume, oh, well, that's what you expect. That's not what I expect. I mean, these kids, I don't care what they came from, whether it's money or not, and they're in fraternities and sororities, and I get that there's social grooming still going on, you know, in colleges with those kind of groups. And I think it's really sad that there's that intensive social grooming happening. And I do talk to these kids and I do hear the stories. But that really pissed me off. And I don't care. I don't feel like I expect that from those kind of kids. I don't expect that from anybody. I think that's really fucked up and rude. And I don't think any girl is asking for it or deserves that kind of shit. She's not coherent. There's no possible way that she's giving you any kind of fucking signals. But I did report it. I reported it, you know, because you review your customer, and immediately I was just like fucking douchebag, and I wrote this big long review. And literally within minutes, someone had called me back and was just like, you know, we saw your review. It was a little bit disturbing. Can you elaborate on that? And then we're going to go ahead and report it to whoever we need to report it to and kick this person off the system, because that's really inappropriate behavior. And they were just like, we're really shocked that you actually took him home. You could have just thrown him out of the car. And I was like, I could have. And I probably should have, but I didn't want him anywhere near where her dorm was. I was that annoyed by him. So I did take him home. But I don't know why young men think that that's appropriate behavior. And I don't know why we as a culture teach young boys like that, that that's okay behavior or socially acceptable, because it's not. And I don't care what kind of community you come from. There is no community that that's acceptable or okay, as far as I'm concerned. I do deal with a lot of kids in fraternities and sororities, and I'm always dumbfounded how much social grooming actually goes on. The things that these girls are told, it's just insane. It's totally insane. And I hear all the stories, and I do ask questions because I'm curious, you know. And these kids do get like a bad rap in the sense that they're called sorostitutes, or they're just the richies, and you know, people don't really have a problem stealing from them or breaking into their student housing and taking things and stuff. And it's because everyone just assumes they're just rich kids, so it doesn't matter. I think that's kind of fucked up. But I think what's really disturbing is that these girls are being, well, they're basically being groomed to be pretty little girls that are basically there for arm candy for men. And you're there to make boys look good, and you're supposed to be seen, not heard. And it doesn't really matter if you're intelligent because you're pretty. And there's a lot of that still going on in our culture, and there's a lot of it still going on in our colleges, in these sororities and fraternities. And I think that's really sad, because it is perpetuating that cycle of just bullshit of women being treated like that as sexual objects. And these are young women, and women learn how to be women from other women, but this is what we're teaching them, and I think that's fucked up. And the instance with this girl that I took home the other night, I'm sure she woke up the next day and doesn't remember anything. And even if she did, it would be one thing that she just chalk up to just some strange experience. It wouldn't think anything of it, because that's what's expected of her. And I just think that's sad. I don't think that girls should be treated that way. I don't think women should be treated that way. And I don't think that young girls should be treated that way. And I think it's wrong that that's socially still going on in our universities.